Okay, so to start off, to kind of give some numbers here. So worldwide, there's 51.6 million cases and 1.27 million deaths. In the United States alone, there's 10 million cases, 237,527 deaths total. And just in Marathon County, where you're located, there are 7,535 cases and only 90 deaths. Um, so, what is your name? And do you mind sharing demographic information for this study, such as race, ethnicity, age, gender, and all that?
Sure. Um, Kevin Dombrowski. I am a 37-year-old white male. I live in rural Wisconsin, have my whole life.
Okay, and what is it like there?
I mean, generally quiet, overall quiet. It's very conservative country. Um, but, overall, it's just your typical country living, I guess you could say.
Okay, and a little bit more about yourself. Like, what do you like to do for fun, or is there anything that you like to share?
Um, I'm kind of your typical case around here. I like to hunt and fish, um, golf, um, nothing, extraordinary, I guess. I'm not racing cars or anything like that.
Okay, so let's see. So when you first learned about COVID-19, what were your initial thoughts about it?
I guess I just didn't, I think like everybody, I didn't understand what it was, and what made it so bad initially. Because, when we first heard about it, it was still overseas, it was still in China, um, and it hadn't necessarily reached Europe yet. Um, so I guess I didn't think much of it initially. And then as, cases became more prominent and it started spreading throughout Europe, then we're like, okay, this, what is this? What is it doing? And as, deaths started to rack up, then it became, is it going to come here?
Mm,
So,
okay, and then what issues have most concerned you about the pandemic?
um, the biggest thing is that we don't understand it. Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people say, oh, it's just like the flu. It might be, but we know how to handle the flu. Where the biggest thing that current concerns me is, they just announced yesterday that, okay, we have a vaccine that looks very promising, but we still don't have a real good set of like first line treatment for it. And it seems like there there's no set, like, okay, if you're younger than this age, it's not really going to bother you. If you're older than this age, you really got to watch out. It doesn't seem to discriminate that way, so that's really concerning to me.
Okay, and then is there anything that would make you even more concerned about catching it or anything like that?
Yeah, I have an autoimmune disorder, so my body's already working overtime against itself, and if I catch something that we don't know how to treat, well, that's going to make things a lot harder.
Okay, and then so so how about for a job? Like what in what ways has it affected your job?
It's affected my job huge. I work retail, and I work retail at a essential business. We serve farmers and construction workers, um, those types of people. So, number one, especially when they first started doing like lockdowns, we had to be open no matter what. And so we even had um, forms that we got from the corporate office basically stating that, I work at this business, I have to be at work, just in case they were going to start like stopping and checking people to make sure that they had a need to be out and about. They never did that, not at least here in Wisconsin, but we had it just in case. Um, and then also just you're around because they never truly shut down. We were one of, and with us being one of the only stores that was open, because a lot of retailers that didn't have to be open, they did voluntarily close. But with us being open and one of the only places open, we actually had higher foot traffic. Um, I remember them saying that our sales figures were up 20 and 30% from the previous year. And it was actually a little alarming because people were supposed to be staying home. But instead they were coming out, and it, you don't want to necessarily judge people, but when they're coming to your place of business and they're supposed to be only coming out for essential items, but you see them buying, bags of candy and things like that. It's like, why are you even out? That none of that is essential. And then eventually you almost became numb to it. It didn't bother you anymore. Um, but then again, but there also, with the amount of people that were coming out, you also were worried about your safety as well. And I have had customers that have come through either one of my cashier's lines, or I've taken care of them at the service counter, where you knew something wasn't right with them. Like you could tell they were sick. And you shut everything down. You sanitize the countertops. You sanitize yourself. And maybe they were sick, maybe they weren't, but at least it made you feel better that you took care of it.
Yeah, so with your health issues, that really did, cause a lot of concern for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've always been the type of person to use like hand sanitizer, like after using a gas pump or going to the grocery store or whatever. But now I do it even more. And there's certain grocery stores that I know that they will have wipes available right at the door, where the one down the street doesn't. So I don't go to that one. So it's even altered my, where I shop and how I shop, when I need to.
Okay. And going back on the health, do you mind us spending on what you have for your
Oh,
autoimmune?
yeah, it's an autoimmune disorder. It's called ITP. Basically, um, my immune system kills blood platelets too fast, and so it gives me a low platelet count, puts me at a bleeding risk. Um, they don't know what causes it. They only know how to treat the platelets, so they can't cure it. Um, and because it's immune system based, literally anything, a cold can kind of trigger it and make it worse. So having something like COVID that's going to completely annihilate your body, basically, nobody knows what it's going to do to you. And there's actually been very few cases, at least that I've heard of, with people that have what I have, that have caught COVID. So we don't know what the body's going to do. We don't know how it's going to react, and that's scary.
Okay. So then, what has been the biggest challenges that you faced with the outbreak?
Um, I guess the biggest challenge is trying to make sure that you are doing, almost like doing your part. Making sure you're wearing your mask, trying to keep everybody else safe, washing your hands, and keeping up on all that stuff. Um, just trying to be a good global citizen, I guess you could say. And it makes you change some of your habits, and getting more accustomed to that sort of thing. So I guess that's been the hardest part, is you know no, I shouldn't go out to a restaurant because that's one of the highest places to catch it. So you got to cook in tonight instead.
Okay, so that with that being said, how do you think, or has it um, affect the way you communicate with friends and family?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You're supposed to, not have the large gatherings. So, you're using social media a lot more, texting on your phone calls, that sort of thing. Um, instead of, going and visiting them or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thank you for that. So how do you think the outbreak affected your community? So meaning community like not even just, spatial, but like even other forms of community like clubs or any kind of thing like that.
hmm Um, I think it really depends on the person that you're talking about. Um, there definitely seems to be almost like three different types of people within the community. There's the people who are very scared of it, and they're not going anywhere, and they're not, they go grocery shopping once or twice a week if they have to, and they're locking themselves in their homes and not coming out and not moving and not anything. And then there's the other extreme where there's people who for whatever reason think it's a hoax or they don't think it's that bad, and they're out and about and everywhere. And then there's the people in between, and I think that's caused within the community, that's caused some tension, especially between the two extremes. And you can sometimes feel it. um, we've actually had in our store, we've had customers arguing, over, somebody who comes in and they don't want to wear a mask. And our store policy has been, we encourage you to, we ask you to, but if you absolutely won't or can't, we don't force you to. And so it's very obvious when 95% of the people in the store are wearing masks, and all of a sudden there's somebody who isn't. And just last week, there were two people where we had to literally separate them. It's caused so much tension. Um, a month or two ago, there was a gentleman who got punched in our store, um, because people were social distancing in the checkout lines, and he decided that the spot in between two people was big enough for him to squeeze into. And he cut in front of a bunch of people in line, and the guy behind him tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey buddy, we were all in line," and the guy just turned around and punched him.
Oh, geez.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's there's been a lot of tension at times. And I think just among the community, you can tell. You don't want to go triggering anybody or ruffling anybody's feathers if you see them, not following protocol, or even following it maybe a little excessively.
Yeah, that's crazy. I haven't had
Yeah,
anything like that. I mean, I've had few people argue with me, but other than
yeah,
that, nothing too extreme like that.
yeah.
Um, so then, have you seen the people around you like change your opinions from like day-to-day activities, the relationships, in response to this pandemic?
um like changing my activities.
No, like change theirs. So like people around you
Oh
like
yeah.
opinions and things like that on it.
Yeah, definitely. um you know i I work in a college town, so definitely, when it first started, and the colleges closed down, you know um students went from being out all the time to not even there. um and a lot of them had to move. They had to, leave. Some of them had to go back home. And you could, especially initially. Now it seems like people have kind of like settled down again, and that could be the cause of the current rise again. But initially, on a typical day, um, you would when you would normally drive down the street and there would be, 100 cars around you. Initially, it felt like a ghost town. There was nobody out. So definitely, people around me have, especially initially, they changed their habits. They kind of changed um, their way of seeing the world, and how we're so connected. But like I said, as this is drawn on now, months and months and months, it seemed to have settled down. People are still conscious about it, but it's definitely, people are trying to be more normal, but that's just really difficult.
Okay, yeah, I suppose that's kind of it goes hand in hand with the whole like self-isolation and the flattening the curve. You kind of heard that get a lot
Yeah,
in media.
yeah,
Um, I mean, there have been two key ideas, that emerged during the pandemic. Um, and I know you kind of answered part of this already, but like, how have you, family, and friends in the community responded to requests of this? Can you think of like specific ideas?
yeah. I mean, just changing your habits. Doing, even if you want to order from a restaurant, you pick it up. You don't go in and you don't eat. Even a lot, we as a store at work, we started offering curbside pickup. I've been doing that a lot more with my own shopping. Um, my parents try to only go and do their grocery shopping once a week if they have to. Otherwise, they try not to go anywhere at all. More online shopping. That been doing a lot more online shopping.
Okay. Yeah, I know even myself, I'd been doing a lot more online stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's not your typical online shopping. It's, hey, I need a pair of socks. I'm going to order them online instead of running into Target or Walmart and picking them up.
mhm.
Things like that, things you wouldn't typically buy online.
Has anybody gotten sick during the COVID-19 outbreak? And what was your response to that?
Yeah, I've known a few people at my work that have gotten sick. Um, in our store, we actually have about 80, 80 or 90 employees, and we've had about 15 to 20 of them that have gotten sick. Um, some of them have been, I mean, just I think a perfect cutaway of the general population of some of them have said, yeah, it wasn't that bad. Where I've just had an employee of mine was on a ventilator for 2 days. So it's kind of run the gamut. Um, and within that, when this whole thing started, um, when somebody would get sick, they would one of the managers would kind of grab a couple of employees and pull them aside, and they would read them this, obviously written by a lawyer, somebody you may have been in contact with has contracted COVID-19, blah blah blah. If you want to get tested, we'll pay for it, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And they wouldn't tell you who it was. They wouldn't even tell you what department they were in. So you couldn't figure out, okay, I've been in contact with this person, that person, maybe I should watch myself. Now, like I said, this last person that I knew was actually on a ventilator for 2 days. I didn't even know he was gone and sick. He was kind of a part-time employee, and he only worked maybe 1 or 2 days a week, and he hadn't been into work for like 3 weeks. And I didn't think anything of it, just because, like I said, he didn't work. He wasn't a regular employee of ours. And when he came back, I asked him how he had been, and he said, "Oh, I was in the hospital. I was on a ventilator for 2 days." And we didn't even get the little legal notice that we got with everybody else. Um, So yeah, I've known several people who have gotten sick. Um, there's been a few people within the, I guess, outer social circle, people that I know of who've died from it. Some people like that my parents went to school with have died from it. Um, there's a young man from our town that they never said what he died from, but it kind of makes sense that that's what it might have been, because they're trying to protect people's privacy, health, with the HIPAA laws and all that. Um, but so you don't always know um, either what they're sick from or what they died from, but it just kind of makes sense. That's what's going around right now, and why else would a 30-year-old guy die? If it wasn't an accident.
So do you think that kind of like that lack of knowing? Do you think that's like I don't know, like a lack of media coverage, or like a kind of a failed like professional acknowledgement? Do you think, or do you think it's kind of hard to track in that way?
No, I think it's just like I said, we've been at this now how many months? It's, and we've just kind of settled into we've settled into a rhythm, I guess, where at first it hit and it was so surprising and people were getting sick, especially in the larger cities. And now it's like, yep, it's here, deal with it, I guess. And it's just become so repetitive. And I think that's what it is. We're like almost stuck in this vicious circle of it. And we kind of know that mostly everybody's going to catch it at one point or another. So when somebody catches it, it's not surprising. Where at first it was.
Mhm.
So I think it's just we're getting a little more relaxed with it. Um, if that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I think that's yet to be seen.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll kind of move on to talking about the media and its coverage and all that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, so in what ways do you think are important issues that the media uh, is or is not covering?
Um, you know, they, every day in your evening noon newscasts, you kind of get the running total. How many cases have there been today? Um, how many how many people tested positive versus negative? I think that's all good. I think it's good information that we need to know. Um, there seems to be like if a certain business seems to have a heavy outbreak of it, they'll announce it on the news. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I think just for your own protection and for your own peace of mind, if there's a grocery store you frequent, and all of a sudden you find out that half the employees there have it, well, then for yourself that you should watch yourself, maybe get tested, maybe whatever. But then there's like another subset of people that think that they're fear mongering or trying to shut that business down or get them in trouble for that. And it's not the media's fault. They're just reporting the news as it comes in. you know so I think the media, I think overall they've done a pretty good job at covering it. There's some areas where I think maybe they like to twist things. um, you know you don't want to think that your local news stations are politically connected or motivated, but sometimes it's hard to deny it. um, and then again, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depends on how you look at it.
Okay. And do you mind sharing what your primary source for news is?
Generally, I get most of my news online. Um, I have online newspaper subscriptions, so I'm reading a lot of national newspapers, um, and the local news, television news that we get here. Um, they've got their social media pages that they post things on. Um, my work hours tend to be a little odd, so I kind of grab the news when and where I can.
Okay. Um, all right. So kind of moving on, we're gonna go into the government now.
Okay.
Um, so how have municipal leaders and government officials in your community responded to the outbreak?
Slow.
Slow?
I think they especially at like the county and city levels, they're afraid of ruffling feathers because there is such a dissonant between groups of people, and I think they're afraid, like doing mask mandates and things like that. Um, it's like they're afraid to do anything, so they did nothing. Um, and now we have these outbreaks that are worse than they were before, and now they're like, well, now we have to do something. 8 months after the fact, now we got to do something about it. Where if we would have done this 6 8 months ago, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. um, so definitely, Marathon County, and my job is actually in Portage County, which is just south of Marathon County. I'm near the county lines, and Portage County has been very much the same, where it's like they're afraid to do anything, so they do nothing. um, and it is frustrating, especially when, if you want to move up one level to the state level, the state says, okay, we're going to leave it up to the municipalities, and then the municipalities sit on their hands and they make no decision at all, and that it's just frustrating.
So you're definitely saying that it was more reactive than proactive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So then, do you have any thoughts on how like the local, state, federal leaders are responding to the crisis differently?
um I think, definitely doing the mask mandates is huge, and actually enforcing them. And that's hard to do. It really is. You can't run around and give fines to everybody who isn't wearing a mask and whatever, but just being a little tighter with it. Um, and even here in Wisconsin at the state level, we have a Democratic governor, but our state houses are Republican run, so they're constantly butting heads about what they should or shouldn't be doing. And the governor does a mask mandate, and then the state house sues them over it, and then they got to go to court over it, and then we don't know what we should do. Especially at work. Okay, we have they mandated um, the number of people that we could have in the store. Well, then the other side sued them and they put a hold on it. Okay, so does that mean we still have to count how many people are in, or do we not anymore? And it's there again. It's frustrating. If somebody would just make a decision and quit fighting about it. This isn't. It shouldn't be a political issue, and somehow they've turned it into a political issue.
Right, right. Um, so has your personal experience transformed how you think about your family, friends, and community? And in what ways do you think that?
Um, some, some. When you go, especially like on social media, you see an uncle or a friend or somebody that kind of has that extreme view of this is fake. This will all be over after the election. You know, all the stuff we were hearing from kind of that side of it. It really makes you wonder how they came to that conclusion. You know, um, you know. So you start thinking of them a little differently. Like it, it's kind of a weird analogy, but you know, back in like World War II when we had the victory gardens and saving scrap metal to go to the military, that was the patriotic thing to do. And now it's like, okay, wearing your mask and washing your hands and social distancing is the patriotic thing to do. And you got this group of people who, no, I'm not going to do it. And when it's somebody you know, somebody you're close to, you know, it changes your view of them. You kind of, at least for me, you know, I think like, how can they not, how can they be so closed-minded like that?
Okay, so then knowing what you know now, um, what do you think that individuals, communities, or government need to keep in mind for the future?
Definitely trying to be a little more proactive, you know, definitely at the government level, because people are going to do what they're going to do if you don't make them do it. You know, if the government steps in and says, look, you know, let's just say in another 30 years there's another virus, it's something brand new, it's just like we have right now. I think if the government takes a little bit more of a hard stance on it and says, look, this is what it is, this is what we know, and this is how we're going to attack the situation and take care of it. It may be right, it may be wrong, but at least they tried. You know, especially at the national level, our government just kind of seemed to brush it under the rug, and you know, it's not going to be a problem, and it's not going to come here, even as people were catching it and dying it. Oh no, it's not a problem. You know, we can't do that again. You know, I would rather try something and be wrong than to do nothing and be wrong as well.
So then, do you think that there are other national issues that they kind of took priority that they shouldn't have over COVID, or
Absolutely. Yeah, they were more worried about the economy. You know, they thought that by shutting down, you know, small businesses to try to keep people safe, that that was somehow going to completely wreck the economy. And there might be some truth to that. You know, especially a smaller business that might not have as much savings built up for the owner themselves, there might be some truth to that. But then you got to offer some sort of subsidy or some sort of protection for people like that, and I wouldn't mind them doing that at all. um, but this thought that if we shut them down for a month and they're never going to reopen, and the place is going to be a ghost town, is just crazy. Economics will always happen. No matter, you know, since the beginning of time, man has used some sort of economic system, whether we were trading rocks and beads for food or we're trading money for goods and services. There's always been economic movement. So this thought that if we shut down the corner hardware store for a month to try to you know, snuff out a virus, and that's going to completely topple the economy, is just an absurd thought.
have any places that you know of that were a little bit smaller business, have they closed down at all that you know of?
Not permanently. There there's there's been places that have closed down for a couple weeks, but nothing that's actually gone out of business. Um, Not that I know of.
Okay. So are there any lasting thoughts that for any future person looking back at this, and for any kind of research, like what anything that you would like them to know?
trust the scientists. They know a lot more than us. you know, and yes, they may be wrong. There may be times that they're wrong, but especially when it's something that we don't know about. This virus popped up so fast, they didn't have time to study it. So yes, when they were saying 1 week that it's acting this way, and then 2 weeks later they were saying, oh no, we were wrong, it's doing this instead. Don't look at that as like a failure to science. That's what science is. It's trial and error. So for anybody who's maybe thinking twice about what their scientists are telling them, you know, don't don't completely write them off because they're wrong once or twice. That's the scientific process. Proving yourself wrong or right, that is the process of science. Let them do their jobs and follow the instructions.
Okay, well, on behalf of UWEC and the public history course that we're doing here, I thank you for your time and answering these questions for us. Yeah, so I think that's going to be it.
Sounds good.